Okay, so after E3, I uploaded my first thoughts video on the Resident Evil 2 Remake reveal. And since Capcom gave us a demo, I've now played it. Now, of course, the demo was a very brief taste, giving a small portion of the RPD to explore, and had a weird 30-minute time limit on top of that. 30 minutes total. As in, you play the demo for 30 minutes and are locked out. Which was kind of an annoyance. But damn, that taste test got me hyped up for the full game. Also, I want to just state first and foremost, I'm aware my footage is technically at 30 frames per second. This is nothing to be concerned about. The game itself is, or at least targets, 60 frames per second on console, unless you're using the Xbox One X or a PS4 Pro's 4K resolution mode, which is reportedly capped at 30. Which I don't believe was in the demo, and I don't have either of those, so... So, why is my footage capped at 30 frames per second? Well, it's because I wanted to experience the game in the best possible way with my resources, but I also wanted to record what I was playing, so I left it at 1080p while recording, and my PVR unfortunately can't record 1080p at 60 frames, so this is entirely a limitation on my end, and not the game's. And when I say it targets 60 frames per second, apparently there are dips based on research on the game from people like Digital Foundry. I personally didn't notice on my base PS4, but I was admittedly just enamored with everything else. It did, however, make my PS4's fan roar. Now, of course, it's a demo, and it is implied to be the same build that was shown off quite some time ago, so maybe the final game's performance will be an improvement, but if not, hey, the game still looks and plays pretty great, and from what I've heard, the PC version is crazy optimized. So those of you who want to go that route, you've got plenty to work with for performance and visuals. Beyond the potential issues with the frame rate, there is a gripe that I absolutely have to address. The lack of music. What we've heard is really good, but the problem is, you barely notice it most of the time. My guess is they lessened the use of music to add to the spoopy atmosphere, which Resident Evil 7 also had done. Maybe the Deluxe Edition's classic soundtrack will fix this problem, but it's a bit of a shame how the music seems underutilized. The rest of the audio sounds pretty great, except maybe the voice acting. The sound effects are fantastic and really help add to the paranoia and tension, and always had me looking around in fear of enemies. As for the voice acting, it seems fine in cutscenes, but during the bits where Leon would occasionally blurt out something while taking on enemies, he'd sound deadpan or annoyed instead of freaked out. Admittedly, I did enjoy this, but probably not for the reasons intended. Regarding the writing itself, one of the common complaints I've seen somewhat is the overt swearing. And I can't entirely disagree. It does feel a bit odd. Not necessarily out of place, but also not really needed, especially since previous entries didn't have all that much for the most part. It wasn't super present in the demo outside of the trailer at the end, but there were a few moments. Though I'd be lying if Leon annoyingly said, "son of a bitch" at a zombie didn't make me laugh. He didn't sound scared or angry, he just sounded aggravated like, "and then there's this asshole." There's also the lack of a title call. I missed this in Resident Evil 7, and I miss it here. Even Resident Evil 6 had that. Hell, Operation Raccoon City had that. Supposedly the classic soundtrack option will restore it, but, well, just because it feels naked without it currently.
Resident Evil 2.
Now, onto the good. Pretty much everything else. Like, oh my god. Remake 2 is delivering on all the hype it gave me back at E3. Capcom is absolutely blowing me away with it. Visually, the game is gorgeous, and it certainly ran smoothly enough that I didn't really notice the frame drops. Maybe I have a magic PS4, or maybe I'm just blind. Who knows? The footage I have does not do it justice, especially with the frame rate capped. The character models are wonderfully detailed, with lots of little touches. Leon's hair in particular is just so bouncy! Even better, when a zombie bites you, you retain the wound, presumably until you heal, and when you shoot them, their bodies get bullet holes or limbs fall off. It's wonderfully gory and violent. Not that Resident Evil was particularly shy of showing blood and gore, but the detail here is absolutely nuts. The environments, too, look drop-dead gorgeous, dripping with atmosphere and little touches, and when compared to the original game, everything feels new and fresh, yet so familiar and nostalgic. I love the lighting. Much like Resident Evil 7, the dim lighting feels realistic when paired with the minimal light sources, especially with the flashlight. It's dark, but it feels like it's spooky dark, instead of so dark I literally can't see anything, and the darkness lighting up from the muzzle flash looks amazing. I will say, thus far, the game hasn't completely freaked me out and left me actually afraid to continue like Resident Evil 7 did, but it did at least make me feel like even in the most restful looking areas, I wasn't entirely safe. I know the save rooms are threat-free much like RE7's, but I still didn't feel safe, so good on that front, Capcom. But how's the gameplay? So good! It really is a modernized Resident Evil 2. And by that, I mean Resident Evil 2, but new. It's not Resident Evil 2, but actually Resident Evil 4. It's not Resident Evil 2, but actually Resident Evil 6. Even reusing the engine and some aspects of the UI from RE7, it's still not RE2, but actually Resident Evil 7. Just as I was hoping, it's Resident Evil 2. And the over-the-shoulder camera didn't change its core. Zombies don't go down easily. They'll soak up bullets and come at you in groups and make you realize that sometimes retreat is better than fighting. Now granted, I did find a decent amount of bullets during my run, but that was actually pretty common in the original Resident Evil 2. And headshots don't give you an easy win. Well, they do with the shotgun, but again, that was in the original. You may score a lucky critical hit where you pop off the zombie's noggin, but it's not guaranteed, just as it all should be. You don't get your melee attacks here, at least not beyond the knife, which can be used as a self-defense weapon much like the daggers in the remake of the first game. Except your knives can actually break. While I never got to see either of these things happen, it's damn exciting to think about. Also, while there is a quick knife button, your knife isn't just equipped on you. Rather, it takes up one of your precious item slots. There are upgrades for your inventory, even in the demo, and I was so happy to see that. Make no mistake, it may have that over-the-shoulder camera, but it's definitely not an action game. I will admit, it's not a particularly difficult demo. Some people claim that it was set to easy mode, but I don't have any proof of this proclamation. But the original Resident Evil 2 also wasn't a particularly hard game. I'm gonna go off on a limb here and assume the low difficulty is due to it being an early part of the game, especially with the zombies still being tough to put down for the most part. They don't even have the blood puddle under them when they die, so it's not uncommon to think you put a corpse down only for him to surprise you by standing back up and trying to take a chunk out of your neck. Oh, and our T-virus infected buddies can also follow you through doors now. That's pretty awesome! There's also the gunpowder, which seems to be kind of a carryover from RE3 and RE7, though I'd compare it more to 3 than 7 due to the way mixing it seems to work. But I didn't actually try it out. I just skimmed over the note in the demo, where it mentioned mixing it multiple times would give you different ammo types. And of course, your green and red herbs were present. Thankfully, I didn't need to use them, as I only got nabbed by a shuffler once, but it was nice seeing the classic healing items make a comeback when they could have just as easily used the healing mechanic from RE7. Also, just a side note, I love that we can see the weapons hanging off the character like RE5 had. It's a minor touch, but I always love seeing my shotgun on my back in that game, and I love it here. Speaking of weapons, the aiming and shooting feels just right. It's tighter than the aiming in RE7, and as weird as it is to say, I think it's due to changing back to the third-person over-the-shoulder camera. Now, I will admit, I missed the hell out of the aiming laser, and supposedly there's footage of Claire aiming with the familiar badass targeting laser, but it wasn't found in the demo. Another small aspect was the ability to barricade windows with boards. I don't know if this permanently makes them protected or if they can eventually be broken through, but it was nice to see them make a return from Outbreak. Man, when are we getting an HD remaster of that? I am bummed out the demo is only 30 minutes long, and you can clear it in much, much less time than that. My personal time was around 18 and a half minutes, so I could go back and play it for another 11 or so, and I just might because, oh my goodness, I want to play it so bad. But I'm so happy I got to play what I did, because I am satisfied. With the demo as it is now, I absolutely loved it. Even if the final game is just as lax on difficulty and has the same amount of polish, I'm gonna adore the shit out of it. The few doubts I still had lingering are pretty much gone, and this is very much the game I was hoping for after its reveal. There are gripes, but the problems I personally have with it are very minor, and who knows, maybe they've already been addressed and fixed in current builds. While I'm not as critical of Capcom over the last gen as many people are, seeing as how I enjoyed many titles over the last decade, This does feel like it's the start of a new golden age with them. Between titles like Resident Evil 7, Mega Man 11, Monster Hunter World, this, and the upcoming Devil May Cry 5, it does seem like they're really prioritizing making the best games they can once again. Also, they brought back everyone's favorite gag character. How can you not love it? Thank you guys so much for watching. Agree? Disagree? What did you guys think of the demo? If you want some more Biohazard related stuff from this channel, why not check out my playthrough of the original Resident Evil 2? Or you can check out my first thoughts on the E3 reveal of the remake. If you want a full review of another Resident Evil game, you can take a look at my lengthy review where I rant about Operation Raccoon City. Or if you like, you can see my buddy Shads and I fail repeatedly at our ongoing co-op playthrough of Resident Evil 6.